On tonight, I ask that you would look at James chapter 3 and verses 9 and 10. Again, James chapter 3, verses 9 and 10. A little better than a year ago, in the city of Los Angeles, Delta Flight 89 took off, headed for Shanghai. Just a few minutes after takeoff, the pilot determined that there was a problem with the engine and an emergency landing was necessary. Given the potential problem that lay ahead, the pilot found it necessary to dump fuel to reduce the weight and prevent any complications in the landing. Pilots are allowed to dump fuel in unpopulated areas unless there is an extreme circumstance in which it cannot be done in an unpopulated area. This fuel dumping experience happened over a period of a few minutes that affected about 5 schools. And nearly 60 children and adults experienced skin issues and lung irritation. The FAA said that they would investigate to determine why the dumping was done in the area in which it was done. Thankfully, the plane was able to land safely, and there was no further harm to human life. When we think of this, it can eerily remind us of something that people do all the time, and that is they dump on others and they hurt others by the way in which they respond, react. Dealing with things internally can cause them to dump on others externally. We have to think about the words of James chapter 3 and verse 9 and 10. Therewith bless we God, even the Father, and therewith curse we men, which are made after the similitude of God. Out of the same mouth proceeds blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not so to be. In verse 11 he says, does a fountain send forth at the same place sweet water and bitter? How do you praise God with the tongue that curses men? So often the reason people are full of this venomous cursing and lashing out in others and responding and reacting to others is because they have hurt. They have things in them that they have not emotionally cleansed themselves from. Like Flight 89, they dump and others are affected and hurt by what they are trying to get rid of. People are hurt for many different reasons. I talk to people all the time who are dealing with things. In fact, some things are really dealing with them. People hurt because of their health issues, affects their state of mind. Some people are hurting because of broken relationships. Choices our children make can hurt us. People have been victimized by violence or see their loved ones victimized by violence. People hurt from lost opportunities, from mistreatment by others, from failure in business, from feeling alienated and unloved, put up for adoption and feeling insecure, carrying loads by yourself, at times when others should be reasonably expected to help you, and you have to count out those that you have perhaps counted on. Some people struggle with things having been terminated from a job. People sometimes deal with issues of colorism and how their self-esteem is affected by having been teased or taunted by the color of their skin. And of course, we're talking about colorism as a result of things within our own race of people. We could go on and on and on. There are a myriad of reasons why people need to emotionally cleanse, but do they even recognize when they're dumping on others? People feel weighed down. When you don't address this anxiety, this frustration within, you're robbed of joy. You hurt others. You say things that hurt others. People will alienate others simply by being an unpleasant person to be around. I often say that we make innocent people pay for what guilty people have done. Some say it this way: hurt people hurt people. I'd like to encourage us to take ownership of ourselves, take ownership of our life, and ownership of our emotions. Whatever has hurt you, whomever has hurt you, don't think you're the only person that has been hurt, and you're not the last person who will experience hurt. We have to learn how to be in charge of ourselves and not let people or circumstances be in charge of how we feel. When appropriate, we need to forgive ourselves, and when others have afflicted hurt, we need to forgive them. We also need to have a vision for our future that helps us to get past the nightmare of our yesterday. When James is writing to this church in the first century and ultimately to us, and he mentions the idea of blessing and cursing coming from the same tongue, I wonder if James thought, or if we think, that so often that cursing comes because people are full of pain, they're full of anxiety, they're full of hurt. There's so many unresolved issues and emotional baggage that many people are carrying because they've not had an emotional detox or emotional cleansing. If one thing we've learned in the last year, life is short and our end is uncertain. Is it wise to go through our life bitter and angry and lashing out at everyone else? Or should we enjoy the time that we have, as precious as it is? It is the same writer, James, who teaches us in the 4th chapter of this same book that we don't know what tomorrow brings. He says, "For what is your life? It is even as a vapor that appeareth for a little time and then vanishes away." In the little time that you have, try to be as happy as you can be. And sometimes that happiness is learning to emotionally detox or cleanse yourself, not be weighted down by all of the pain and the scars of life, but be careful not to dump on others because you adversely affect people who are innocent. Though we spend time in prayer and we ask God about paying our bills and improving our physical health, helping us to find love, praying for safety for us and our children, how about asking God to help us to get over these issues, these problems, people and circumstances that have done damage to who we are, so that we can be in an emotionally good place and be a better person. This has been another installment of A Few Minutes with the Minister. Let's emotionally detox, but let's not dump on others in the process.